Welcome to Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast. I'm your host, Dave West, codename Phantom Troublemaker.
I am your co-host, Noel, with codename Crapshoot.
And I'm your Cobra intern that's
redacted.
codename Legion Cub.
This is a special installment of the live stream where we are going to be talking about G.I. Joe #1, except for the last 2 pages, which have not yet been released. We will talk about those probably on next week's live stream, but we'll talk about everything up to that point. So I will warn everybody in advance. Spoiler alert. We will be spoiling the first. I don't know. Actually, you have no idea how many pages this issue has because they were nice enough to make the 2-page spreads 1 page within the PDF. But we'll be spoiling everything except for the last 2 pages. And I'll be honest with you, not a lot to spoil, if we're being honest.
This is our pilot episode, so we just got to introduce everybody.
That's right. It is largely a catch up.
I think there's a couple things. Maybe most people won't consider them spoilers per se, but
well, it depends on your definition of spoiler. Spoiler can range anywhere from any kind of plot detail whatsoever to the surprise appearance of some character nobody was expecting. Like, it's a wide range depending on who you are. For me, and really it even depends on what it is. If it's the new, like, Star Wars something or other, I don't want to know anything. Like, don't even tell me what planet it's on. I don't want to know anything. But if it's like, if it were a new DC universe, like an old pre-James Gunn DC, whatever, just tell me. I don't care. It depends on my investment in the thing.
Well, there is one thing that looks like spoiled food in this issue, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, you can follow us on Instagram at Audible Interlude Podcast. Our next live stream will be right here on the Needless Things YouTube channel on November the 18th. That is next Monday. We'll talk a little bit more about this Dragonfly right here, although my review of the Dragonfly and Wild Bill goes up tomorrow right here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. Also, the Iron Grenadier Bat will go up this week, so keep an eye out for that. Next week, even more stuff. We're headed into crazy toy season right now, it seems like. While you're at Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram, check out our pinned stories for links to TeePublic, who I believe have a sale going on right now. You can get 35% off of shirts. Get yourself an Audible Interlude shirt and show your support for the show, but always wait for a sale. We are not looking to profit off these things. We just want to see these beautiful Audible Interlude designs out in the wild. Everything from a nice summertime design up on the top left to a Beastie Boys Licensed to Ill tribute shirt to, of course, the ever-popular tactical shovel. Who doesn't need a tactical shovel shirt? What else have we got here? Well, that's pretty much everything. We're not covering any news this time around. This is just to talk about G.I. Joe #1. We got a couple of sound offs from the post this morning. If you are following us on Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram, every day that we're doing a live stream, we'll put up a sound off post in the morning where you can tell us what you want us to talk about. We've got a couple of comments that we're going to delve into after we discuss this premiere issue of G.I. Joe from Skybound. So before we dip into it, I want to check in with the chat. We got some folks hanging out ready for the spoilers that will be happening. Wreckship85, Patrick Sargent, Agent Chuckles hanging out, waiting to talk about G.I. Joe #1. This is very exciting because we've been following the Energon Universe. I highly recommend you go back and check out our recaps and reviews of the previous miniseries, Duke, Cobra Commander, Destro, and Scarlet. We enjoyed all of those and are very excited to get to this culmination of G.I. Joe in the Energon universe. And I will remind everyone again, spoilers. And that's the last one you're going to get. If you are listening to this episode, wherever you're listening, be sure you're following Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast, and give us a 5-star review. And if you're watching us live right now, click a like on that live stream. Give us a share. All right. Are you guys ready to talk about G.I. Joe #1? Excellent. Well, we've got a little bit of recap. First of all, this gorgeous cover featuring most of the team members we've been introduced to on both sides. We talked about this before when it was first revealed. And also some Transformers, some Cybertronian wreckage underneath each side. And I noticed it looks like, I think we pointed out before, it looks like maybe Soundwave's chest, Megatron's arm, there's an Optimus Prime arm in there. Just a nice little teaser of these two brands interacting. And of course, my personal favorite, Agent Cakes, front and center, not in the issue. Very disappointing.
Don't call her Chameleon for nothing. She's there.
She was in there.
We didn't see her.
We just didn't see her.
Yeah.
All right. Moving along. Our writer is Joshua Williamson, artist Tom Riley and Jordi Belair, and our recap is, or the synopsis, I suppose, is a better word for what I'm getting ready to do. Conrad Hauser, codenamed Duke, has assembled a special force known as G.I. Joe to battle the rising power of the mysterious Cobra in the aftermath of the Autobots and Decepticons' arrival on Earth. But the enigmatic Cobra Commander has unleashed the power of Energon like never before. Ooh. Which brings us to our opening pages that are essentially a recap of hang on, I've got to adjust my size here. I moved my windows and everything's all jacked up. There we go. That's better. So we've already discussed these first few pages, but we will go over them again here now because, to be honest, we have a little bit different perspective because I think when we first got these preview pages, we had not read the final issues of Scarlet and Destro yet. So while this is mostly a recap of what we've seen, it is a nice little check-in with page 1. We've got Duke talking to somebody somewhere. And underneath we have panels that are basically Duke #1 in 4 panels. I like the color choices here. I like the sort of olive drab orange combo that's almost reminiscent of the Duke figure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also kind of reminiscent of the Duke comic itself, where it kind of had that color scheme in the first couple of issues.
Yeah, it was washed out.
They all have their own. Yeah, they all have their own identity. Each one of these mini books we've read.
So moving on to the next section. Oh my gosh, all right, I really do have to fix my aspect ratio here. Hang on. I don't usually look at it like this because we're not reviewing these live. So it's kind of, let's see. I'll do that. Do that. And do that. There we go. That's better. Okay, so next up we get a 2-page spread that, well, what jumps out about this one to you guys? I mean, aside from the fact that they're literally jumping out of a cargo plane.
The same thing that jumped out to me the first time is that everyone's jump pack is blasting except for Rock and Roll. Like, he is just cowabunga. And I said it back during the Duke miniseries. I love this iteration of Rock and Roll's personality.
Yeah. Well, and he's front and center, even though Duke is obviously leading this charge. Like, Rock and Roll is the centerpiece of the entire 2-page spread.
So our team consists of Duke, Baroness, Rock and Roll, Cover Girl, Stalker, and Clutch. And what I like about rock and roll in the middle there is his pose says to me, we're here to have some fun.
We're here to party.
They're not trying to achieve like, this is what actual soldiers with actual jetpacks would look like. Like, they're not going for that at all. This is fun time, aerial assault. Here we go, G.I. Joe.
Well, I feel like you get that with like CoverGirl. Stalker obviously is ready to kick some butt because he's two-fisting it. Clutch, bringing up the rear, doesn't even have a gun. I mean, he probably jumped out thinking, why am I here?
What am I going to drive?
I need 4 on the floor.
It's a very dynamic, exciting, fun 2-page spread. And moving on to the next one, we see Chameleon's drones are the enemy they're after, or at least something that very closely resembles them. And each Joe kind of goes after them in their own way. And we get a little character description for Rock and Roll, for Stalker. And this is, looking back at that first page, I like how the flashbacks are done in the sort of washed out, less saturated colors.
Yeah, it makes it easy because I mean that's very easy for them to do this. I've read comics where they try to intersperse the flashbacks, and sometimes it's hard to follow what is happening in real time. But like this makes it very, very easy. It's just like watching, like if you were watching this in a movie or something.
Well, it's almost a little, and granted the panel format's different, but it's almost a little Tarantino-esque where you might have somebody, a character talking, doing a thing, and then they've got like a little side panel with a slightly different film stock or whatever to show something, a past action.
So was I the only one that, even though it's Duke talking to General Hawk during this part, I totally heard Bosley from Charlie's Angels? Because it is, here's this person,
when they
here's
get to
their
CoverGirl.
background, here is how they got to G.I., here is why they're in G.I. Joe. So we get flashback them.
I didn't put that together, but you're right. It definitely has that like administrator over the secret agents or operatives or whatever voiceover feel. You're absolutely right. Let's see here. So the panels are a mix of flashback and Joe profiles with dialogue between Hawk and Duke on top. We move on through CoverGirl, Clutch, who I think are going to be a lot of fun to watch the two of them throughout this. And then finally, Baroness, who we know is not really a good guy, so to speak, but has been recruited to their side. And of course, after she takes out a drone in a spectacular knifey fashion. And I think it's funny that everybody else seems to be handling their stuff okay, except for Clutch, who, again, as Kristian pointed out, unarmed, so he's just being chased. Everybody else is shooting at him, but Baroness is discovering that bullets aren't having any effect. By the way, bullets, very interesting, right?
Very important.
Yes.
And with Baroness, I mean this as a very high compliment. This is not sarcasm, dear listeners, but in this, so, she's shooting, she realizes, hopefully you have your issue when you're hearing this and you're following along. But when she jumps down on top of one of the drones and pulls out her knife, Baroness is the Brock Sampson of this group. And again, I mean that as a compliment because she is, Rock and Roll is, I'm going to have fun and kick butt. And Baroness is like, I am here to tear bleep up.
Well, and even the look on her face in the panel where she stabs the drone looks like Brock Sampson from, I think it was the debut episode of Venture Brothers, where he just kind of, we kind of see him lose it for the first time. Like over the course of Venture Brothers, he got a little more composed and they made a bigger deal out of when he lost it. But the first few episodes, it seemed like he was really going to be this like rage junkie almost
And
Hulk-like.
that's what I see in her in this issue.
Well, and great. Now I'm going to hear Patrick Warburton's voice every time she talks in this comic.
Time to catch up, Joe. It appears only I have the skills to take down our. You're kidding me. It's gonna be like Dr. Mrs. the Monarch.
Yes.
All right. So of course, Baroness's jetpack goes out. I have to say, Duke has to save her. Felt a little.
I think Duke is the only one that would save her.
Well, right. But the fact that she needed to be saved at all. But she's it's part of the story.
Yeah.
I didn't take it as damsel in distress. Because I was kind of like right there with her. Like, your gear is a piece of crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't see it that way either. And I also there's the passage between Hawk and Duke earlier where, he's like, I know you didn't think it was a great idea that I bring her on the team. And I'm like, Duke's going to look real dumb soon, which is something that Duke does quite often in the media. So.
Oh, wow. When we comment here, so for the first time ever, we are also streaming from the Needless Things page on Facebook. And apparently when we comment,
it's
all three places
yes.
reply. So everybody in the chat, just be ready with that.
You can read each one in our, one is Dave, one is me, one is Noel. Take your pick which one you want to listen to.
Ooh, that's tough.
And one of them's Patrick Warburton.
Oh, yeah.
I would. Okay, this is purely, I think I'm YouTube. I think Kristian is Twitch, and I think Noel is Facebook. I don't know. I don't know if that lines up with anything at all. So Baroness's jetpack goes out. Duke, I do appreciate the fact that he's trying to fix her jetpack and not just like scooping her up and flying off or whatever. Everybody lands, and it turns out, it's a training exercise. Baroness is furious, walks out the door, and Stalker basically says, well, don't let it hit you in the butt on the way out. Stalker, not a big fan of... wait a minute. That's rock and roll, isn't it?
It's rock and roll, yeah.
Am I totally missing?
Rock and roll
Did I jump ahead? Doesn't Stalker at some point... This might be later on. Yeah.
Well, if so, okay, Stalker's. Okay. This is a smarter Stalker than the one in Operation Dragonfire.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Well, everybody in everything is smarter than anybody in Operation Dragonfire. No, the Stalker confrontation is a little later in the issue. So it is a training simulation, and at the end, Duke points out that they don't have the tech or the manpower to fight Cobra, which is a really good place to be narratively, because it sets the Joes against insurmountable odds, which, of course, you don't want this even battle. Like, to tell a good story, you need underdogs. And traditionally, our rebels, our heroes, our whatever the case may be, that's who you got to root for.
And this is, I feel like, the first time we've really seen Joe portrayed that way. Because in the Marvel series, in Sunbow, like, it starts off with, Duke and this team are the best of the best. And
Renegades,
he's sitting here saying,
Renegades had that. But for the most part, Joe and Cobra tend to be relatively evenly matched.
Yeah, but with Renegades, the main protagonist was also G.I. Joe in that case. Cobra was there, we were learning about them, but really it was Flint and Lady J hunting down G.I. Joe that was really the main concern. So it was a little bit different narrative there.
But it was still Joe's fighting. I mean, these...
Joe's being the underdog.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, our Duke and our team were still G.I. Joes. Like, unless you want to call them something else. I don't know.
They were Renegades.
I don't think that was the official team name. So next we go to Springfield, and the first panel confused me a little bit because it's a cul-de-sac, like any neighborhood might have, and it looks like Destro's just kind of... Is that Destro in the cul-de-sac? I'm trying to
like
determine.
it looks like it's a billboard at first. That's the first thing I spotted. It was like, is he standing inside of his warehouse with all the hisses and them marching, and then this is like a billboard of what Springfield looks like?
No, that's what we in the film industry or television industry call an establishing shot. So you know now where we are. Springfield is this,
Oh,
white picket fence little town.
I got it. So remember when Destro met Cobra Commander? Cobra Commander came up out of the street. Destro is walking. That's why he's on this pedestal in the next shot.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to skip some panels here. He's walking to the pedestal, and it's lowering him from that cul-de-sac into Cobra's actual underground system.
Yeah, I just don't think they needed a little.
They skipped a panel.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I think that's exactly what it is. So we see Cobras marching around. There's good old Doctor. What's his name? What the heck was his name? He's the mass device guy that we met in the Cobra Commander comic. So he's down there working on Energon. Scrap Iron's working on upgrading the weaponry with Energon, and then some Cobras are very bravely walking amongst the decommissioned bats. But then we have, and I love this, it really is a great illustration of this escalation of firepower, because even though Duke has acknowledged Cobra has the superior might at this point, Destro is here at the end of this page saying, but it's not enough. And I love that idea of there will never be enough, because both sides will continue to escalate until what? And then we get Cobra Commander looking way more hideous than I realized he looked with, I think we had said that we thought that was a glove in his comic, but it's his freaking hand.
Yeah.
Well, he gets like mutilated, and they have to, heal him up in that comic. But we never really see the extent, because he immediately puts on his new uniform and goes out in the world. So, we're just now seeing the extent of the hideousness that is now Cobra Commander.
Right. Well, I'm wondering, though, did he lose a hand, or did he remove a hand in order to have this weapon that saved him from Nemesis Immortal?
Yeah, because if you look, the way the cables, there are parts, that are going down into his forearm, very Borg-like for our listeners that can't see this.
And Cobra Law would not have done that for him, because they would not want the technology.
Right.
So this is clearly his implementation.
Yeah, 100%. So we've got Energon crystals, and then it looks like we have a snake being exposed to Energon crystals, which, are we already doing Python Patrol?
I think that's just on our brain right now, or at least this panel very much confused me.
Well, I love it though, because it's and wait, real quick. Speaking of Operation Dragonfire, for anybody that's been following that on our audio episodes, we have been doing recaps of Operation Dragonfire, and as soon as we're done with this live stream, we will be recording the final day 5 of Operation Dragonfire. So this, yeah, right. The audio version of this live stream will be available Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts, and then the final installment of our reviews of Operation Dragonfire will be available this Friday wherever you get your podcasts as our regular episode. But yeah, this page, I don't know, I just love that shot of Cobra Commander. Well, it is. Like I said, he's worse off than we realized. Or not worse off, because he's fine with it. Much like Snake Cobra Commander is fine with it. As long as his eyes read Caucasian, he's totally fine with whatever he looks like in the armor.
Well, and it really, I wasn't thinking this when I read this issue the first time, but because you mentioned the Nemesis Immortal fight, when you go back and you look at the Cobra Commander miniseries, he's using Cobra Law weapons throughout a lot of it, right? You've got the insect bugs and all that. He has the one gun. But this here, it just shows you like he is that next step.
Yeah.
He is that evolution of machine and gross nature.
Well, and this would be the ultimate blasphemy to Cobra Law, and I really hope down the line we get to see Globulus's reaction to this hand and anything else that he may have done to himself. I mean, we don't know. We're just seeing the hand right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wreckship 85 has a fantastic idea. Energon Patrol, a bunch of neon-colored troops. Let's go. So Cobra Commander agrees. Cobra needs so much more than what they currently have at hand. Everything to date has been child's play compared to what we will need to take over the world. Stating the goal. That's right. Set your goals, just like Civ said back in the day. And then we've got, look at him back there, just looking happy as can be. Mercer back on the scene. And I love that we're talking about like, oh, we need better weapons. We need upgraded things. And Destro's like, well, I've got this rifle here. And Cobra Commander is not impressed. He's like, what? How many rifles have you invented? For real?
And we get that when he, use my words. When he is like, how many rifles have you created? Like at this point, Cobra Commander's bored with the fact that Destro is making.
He even questioned. He's like, I don't even know that you're that useful. If this is all you're giving me is rifles.
So when Destro is pointing out the dummy, the practice dummy, and it's like, let's see how good your aim is. I will say I read that a little too literally because I was thinking, oh, Destro has created a gun that cannot miss. It's like Wanted. Was not expecting.
I thought the same
Cobra
thing.
Commander turn around and put the gun in Destro's face. I was like, oh, we are still harboring feelings from
we're establishing this, this dynamic that we've known for 40 years now early on. Like it's here from the start because they're working together out of necessity and not out of like brotherly love.
Right.
So we find out this is an Energon pulse rifle, which is tremendous because, as we've mentioned in the miniseries, they weren't shooting lasers in this world. Everything was bullets, and now we have, for the first time, a laser gun.
Which Mercer is so excited about.
He is delighted.
Yeah. I thought it was brilliant. It's from a marketing standpoint, I don't know if Hasbro had any direction in this at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from the way that Hasbro can capitalize on this was so smart.
Let's see here. Tom Henry is hanging out and says this better be leading to battle armor Cobra Commander with bio enhancements. And I cannot believe there's not a parenthetical there that says and a fang. Let's see. Ronnie Trickshot. Mercer is a big old brother in the Energon comics. Hey, what a boss. Yeah, he is a big dude. He is massive. All right. Moving along to a different setting. We're in Abu Dhabi. And we have a brutish security guy outside of a nightclub that says no guns inside. In very traditional cinematic movie scene type thing where you've got a thug surrounded by ladies and associates and whatever else. And somebody just walks up to him and oh goody, it's FBI MMA dude bro. So we get a few pages of this guy doing what this guy does. Risk, I think.
Risk. Yeah, it's they got to do a cross sell with other Hasbro products. The game of world domination.
Risk. Oh my gosh. Are we gonna start getting characters named after board games?
There's gonna be one called Sorry.
Yeah. I can hardly wait for Battleship. Shipwreck's uncle. I gotta be honest here, as I try to be. They've got a lot of work to do with this guy because I don't care about him at all. I felt like I was reading a different comic book. Nothing about these 3 pages interested me in the least.
Yeah, and I get why they're doing it, because
of course
we know how well the John Wick / Nobody / these movies about the tough guy vigilante,
right,
they do very well. And I guess they feel like they just need to put that into G.I. Joe. But you know what this could have been? Chuckles.
Could have been Chuckles. Oh, what if Risk gets his face blown off and ends up being Snake Eyes?
So we, with our reviews of the Scarlet miniseries, we kept commenting about...
Oh, wait, hang on real quick, though. Hang on. Let's follow that through a little bit. We have this character, Risk, who is very Mary Sue, who is very of the moment. And my guess in the chat, you can, anybody, whether you read this comic or not, you're aware of Risk and what he is. Chances are, I think most Joe fans are going to have at least a little resistance to this character. But what if he is this sort of unstoppable machine, but then does get brought low, does suffer the disfigurement or whatever, and actually does end up being Snake Eyes? Because there's no... What is this? We know there's no Snake Eyes in the Energon universe at this point.
No, and we've introduced the Arashikage, so you would think if we were going to at least hint, but not even a sniff of Snake Eyes thus far.
That would be an interesting way to go about it, and the fanboy rage we would hear across YouTube would keep me alive for at least another 5 years.
All right. So,
but wait, I want to say, real quick. We talked about how well the fight scenes in the Scarlet miniseries were drawn. It was very dynamic, and you could feel it. And even though Risk, but I do love the art on these 3 panels. After fantastic. That one guy gets his face beat, and it's got like the footprint. Like, I love all that.
Oh yeah, so the battle has
the multiple fists coming at you in one. Yeah. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, it's 3 fantastic pages of a dude taking out a bunch of goons. Like it,
and also you have like the purple and then the yellow panel, and the purple, the yellow panel. And I like because it feels like you're in a nightclub and there's like strobing music.
I think it's meant to be the lights. Yeah. Yeah, it really works. I mean, it's gorgeous artwork, and it tells the story tremendously well. And look, this guy does look like a badass, but I think it's exactly the thing that you said, that John Wick and Nobody and all these like one-man army movies that we've gotten over the last decade.
I just saw The Fall Guy a couple weeks ago, and this is like, it's literally a scene out of The Fall Guy.
I don't know. He wasn't, Colt Seaver in that movie was not this competent.
No.
Well, like, he was very resilient a couple of times and gotten away with it. Which, by the way, anybody listening to this or watching or whatever, if you have not watched The Fall Guy yet, it is fantastic.
It's so good. It was
away.
Way better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, because I love that. That show is one of my childhood cornerstones. Like, I put that above like Chips and Dukes of Hazzard Fall Guy was up there for me. So going into this movie, I almost had to separate it from what it was. But then once I got into it, I was like, no, this is what it would be now. Like they nailed it, and it's so freaking funny, and yet never loses the stakes.
It's funny and it has heart. I know we're now talking about something completely different, but like
Right.
they did a great love story without shoving it in your face or making it corny. They made, the just great jokes, great callbacks throughout. Yeah.
All right, so moving on. Oh, we get Risk. Risk finishes up his little skirmish. Tells the guy, "Don't sell to Mars Industries," and then
they got me hooked. Honestly, that word bubble happened, and my brain went, "I need to know who this guy is. What is he selling to Mars? What is Destro not building himself? Like,
oh,
legit,
see, I took it as just resources.
I
didn't take it as anything specific. I thought my assumption with this page was that Risk was a government guy who'd been sent around to do this to anybody because they know Mars is a threat. Mm-hmm. So he's been sent around to anybody that's known to work with Mars to send a message. That's all I took it as. Not that it was anything specific. Like he's done this 6 times now, and he's supposed to do it 6 more. But then for some strange reason, instead of a smartwatch, he has this gigantic screen.
it's like an iPad on a
right.
mounts on your wrist.
He has a Dick Tracy appreciation.
Oh, see, putting it like that makes me like it. The what was it, the TV watch or whatever it was. See, I like that. So Risk changing plans, return home, and we go to the pit, and Duke is completely just soloing it up on the hood of a Jeep, not the Vamp, a Jeep. Hawk walks up, and they actually have a really great conversation that I kind of relate to be honest. Duke is kind of lamenting that the team isn't doing everything he says in the way he wants them to do it. And Hawk says, that's why they're a team. I want them to be different from every other military team. We need individuals. We need people who can think for themselves and do their own thing. I really liked this conversation because Hawk lets him in on you can't. Well, Duke says, I just need them to do what I would do. And Hawk's like, well, let me tell you a little story.
So, in not ignoring the Marvel series because Duke was so minor in it, but like in Sunbow, I've never connected with Duke. Like he has never been a favorite Joe. I wouldn't even say he's like in my top 20 because I always found him very bland and sort of Boy Scouty. And the Energon Universe so far has made me, oh, okay, this Duke I can get behind.
Yeah.
And then when he started in with this, he's not bland and Boy Scouty, but I was back to, oh, Duke, come on. No, you're a jerk. And I don't like he has seen some crap, but you're doing that. Just do what I tell you to do.
But we have to go back. We have to go back to what happened to his partner.
Yeah.
His partner was killed and he feels responsible for it. So he wants these people to play it straight and narrow so no more lives are lost.
And I get that. It's just sort of that I want them to do it my way, and there's no other way to do it. Like there was so much thinking outside of the box in the earlier miniseries for him to, make his way to Destro.
Well, but he wasn't responsible for anybody else in the miniseries.
Right.
Now he's responsible for other people, and I think that's an interesting point of conflict. Is that they're going to have to deal with each other.
100%.
I like that it's not just, yo, Joe, we're all on the same team. Like they have some personality and some conflict.
I like that they're making me go, I don't like this Duke. And I love the conversation that him and Hawk have
Yeah.
over it, because again, it just feels like something we've never gotten before.
Well, and that's another thing, because we know Hawk has things he's not telling Duke. So that is another level of conflict, is that right now Hawk looks like the sort of kind, thoughtful boss giving a pep talk, but we know he's got a whole other operation going on behind Duke's back. Like Hawk's playing at different levels.
Yeah.
And that's
If-
interesting too.
I would love to hear from any of our listeners, if you haven't read the Destro miniseries, if you read this first and then you go back and read Destro, I would love to hear how that messes
Right.
with you.
This is the same Hawk that made a deal with Destro.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, wait, that wasn't Hawk. No, wait, that wasn't Hawk. That was
was-
Oh, that was Flag.
General
No,
Flag. Ledger? Flag? One of the generals.
it was Flag. Why
Okay.
was I thinking it was Hawk?
Well, because he
It's-
is the most prolific authority figure we've seen regularly in the Energon universe thus far. So I think it's easy to relate it back to him, but it wasn't him. It was a level
It was
above
Flag.
him. So then that's you've got Duke, who doesn't know about Flint's team, run by Hawk, and then you've got Hawk, who doesn't know that his superior made a deal with Destro. Like, it's all just bad news down the line, I'm sure. All right, so Hawk tells Duke, "Oh yeah, by the way, tomorrow you're going on your first assignment, buddy." And he does the finger guns. He does not do finger guns. That would have been a step too far for this genteel Hawk. Oh, let's also, something that I just now remembered, a little breadcrumb that was dropped way back. Zartan is out here somewhere. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in the
Yeah.
Cobra Commander comic where they said, and then there's what your brother is up to. And that was kind of all they said about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the next morning in the conference room of the pit, we have our Joes assembled around the table, and you'll notice that CoverGirl now has blonde hair, which she says she changed because Clutch says, "I liked you with the auburn hair." Who says auburn hair?
Clutch is a player. He's trying to show that he's not like the other guys.
He's trying to show that he goes into Walmart and looks at the colors
Right.
on the dye
I'm not
boxes.
going to call you a soulless ginger. I'm not going to ask if the carpet's you know what. Like, I know that you're an auburn. You're a fall.
Kristian, the carpet is not the drapes are not the you know what part. The carpet is the you know what part.
Oh, I know, but right now, if that's the case, they don't match.
So Clutch is drawing up a vamp because he wants something to drive. Multi-purpose attack vehicle. I call it the vamp. And says, "I drove something like it before, but I'm updating it." So the thing that we saw in the Duke miniseries was not actually the vamp, even though it looked exactly like the vamp, as did the Cobra vehicle that we saw later on. But that's okay. We're moving forward. So Duke walks in the room. You're all aware of why Codename G.I. Joe was formed, to find and combat deadly emerging weapons technology. And I love that we go back. This one image of a Cybertronian is all, well, they still don't even know they're Cybertronians. Giant killer robots is basically what they are dealing with. And it's this image of Optimus Prime again, who we as the audience know is not a killer robot, or at least not intentionally, but that they just see Deadly Invader. And then we move on to a page or 2 pages, another 2-page spread that really took me a minute to figure out. Did you guys interpret this one easily?
It took me a
They
second. I
don't
also had to zoom
know.
way in.
Well, they both are aware of that piece of technology, like whatever Cybertronian waste it is.
Well, I like the top of the 2 pages that's Duke and Destro on either side of a map that is, presumably split by continents or whatever the case is, but they're talking about the same thing from different perspectives. And it is Cybertronian technology that we saw crash to Earth at the end of Destro. When did we see that? We saw,
or was it in the free comic book day
Energon Universe thing? I don't know, but we saw something from Cybertron land in the ocean, and this is what they're looking at now. And they talk about how a piece of it was recovered and taken to a lab in Colorado. And I was very confused by this next part because they show this building, and then we see the Joes, like Cobra Commander is saying, kill all but one of them to send out the message of Cobra. How very Batman 1989 of you. Who are you? We're Cobra. Tell your friends. And then we get the Joes in a building saying, and this is how we save the world. And it took me a minute to realize they weren't still in the pit.
Oh,
Because there was no showing the Joes traveling.
Oh, see, as soon as they show the panel with everybody in the room, I just assumed like this is where they were talking about where they're holding it. My granted, I guess since we've been talking, it now makes more sense that it is just a piece of that much larger thing. Because I was like, wait a minute, that looks like
Omega Supreme's toe,
a foot, like, or yeah, like a finger digit. That does not look like the same piece in the top. And
well, no, I think the top isn't meant to be, because if you look at the image on the top panel, that's clearly the remains of a starship because it's got two like battleships around it.
Right.
So this is just a piece that was recovered from that. Now, how they determined that this piece that looks like every other piece of junk hanging off of that wreckage was important, I don't know. But I couldn't even tell that the Joes had changed location. So what do I know?
Well, I learned in D&D, if you cut off the big toe, they lose their balance. So they realize this looks like a toe. Let's take it.
So the Joes are indeed in that lab in Colorado. Baroness is not impressed because all they're doing is standing around making sure the scientists are able to do all the analyses they want to do on the toe. Because, of course, Audible Interlude canon is now that this is indeed a toe. And Baroness is a little infuriated. And this is where we get the little conflict with Stalker, where he says, you can go at any time, get on out of here, rather not have a war criminal on the team anyway. Baroness curses him out in some other language, and Stalker more than responds because, as has been pointed out a couple times already in the Energon Universe, Stalker knows many languages, including the one that Baroness just tried to use on him, and he shocked her.
Well, you know that this actually says something, right?
Oh, no,
yeah.
I didn't look
at it. I translated it. So,
what is it?
Baroness, it's Russian. Baroness says, "Shut up, stupid old pig, or I'll cut your neck in your sleep." And Stalker's response is, "Try it, and I will not only kick your butt, I will drag you back to your mother and father and show them how their little princess has turned into an empty life. They brought you into this world, so maybe they will do us all a favor and take you." So that's the conversation.
Wow. She just got so Duke naturally steps in, once again coming to Baroness's rescue, which I think is probably not going to pay off for him in the long run. But he says we're not each other's enemies. We've got orders here, and we're going to carry them out. And then Cobra ripped into the internet.
Wait, but this, and I'm surprised with as many times as I have giggled at this panel that it is still having this effect on me. You've got the lab technician or whatever looking at the static going, something is hacking our systems. And in the background, you see a very annoyed cover girl
Yeah.
going, it wasn't me. Like,
Which doesn't make any
he
sense,
is-
but is hilarious.
he is going to be my MVP until they introduce Shipwreck.
Clutch is Bart Simpson. I didn't do it.
So this is everyone's first time seeing the Cobra emblem.
Mm-hmm.
Duke says, everybody down. And Tom Henry, hold on to your butt because it's fang time. A single fang, which I'm assuming the intent here was to show that it is not just a single person chopper, that it is capable of serious assault on its own. Like one single fang is a threat, I think is the point here. Now, granted, we have seen the Fang before in these comics, but it's exciting to see it in this context, firing on a lab with G.I. Joes in it, which is really the most familiar thing we've seen so far in all of these comics, I think. Joes run away, and we see Cobras coming up the stairs. The Joes, it would seem, are surrounded.
Yeah, like they come in fast. Like there's suddenly an army of Cobras just surrounding the Joes. And then Rock and Roll has just broken my heart in this next panel.
Wait, real quick. Tom, we are not setting you up for heartbreak. When I tell you that the Fang popped up and I gasped and got so excited for you. Spoiler alert, it is really a Fang.
So tell us about your heartbreak, Noel.
So as this Fang has come and blown out the windows in this tower in Colorado, and the Joes are scrambling, and as the Cobra troopers are swelling the building, Rock and Roll looks down at his broken weapon and goes, "Dang it, they broke my favorite." And he just has the most sad, dejected look on his face.
There's nothing sadder than sad Rock and Roll. The Joes are moving throughout the building. Duke sees the Fang outside the window and does, of course, the smartest thing he could possibly do. He jumps out the window onto the Fang.
Yeah.
And
He
Cobra
has to
Commander,
get to the chopper.
I love Cobra Commander's reaction. This man is insane. I just noticed he's not been sibilant in this issue the way he was at the end of the Cobra Commander
He
series.
did when he fired the laser gun. He says yes. And
did he?
Emphasize the yes. Yeah.
So we got one. And then Destro is surprised that Duke is even alive because, of course, Destro thinks he was murdered by bats and blown up.
But he just blows it off. He's like, I was told he died. It doesn't matter.
Right.
He's like,
Right.
we don't care.
Well, he's just one man.
Yeah, it's just we'll take him out.
So Baroness
also,
is absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Only because we've sort of mentioned this throughout the issue. So, listeners, before Cobra attacks, right? Like they've got to keep the lab cool for some weird reason for the toe. So the color palette is very cool, right? Boom. Cobra symbol shows up on these TVs. Everything now takes this red tone, right? Like it is now a fight, but every time they cut outside, it is back to just regular coloring. But back inside the building, I just love how they're conveying to you, like, it's not only this fight, it's everything is going to, hell in a handbasket inside, and outside it is just as normal as can be.
Well, and the red, it helps it feel like in close quarters intensity, like dire circumstances. It really is like the color
Yeah.
palette throughout all of these has been very impressive.
Major shout out to the colorist.
So Duke naturally just tosses our Fang pilot right out, and everybody take a good mental snapshot of this fella because we are presumably going to get a figure like this within the next year-ish.
Also, this Fang is apparently not very loud because Baroness, still inside the building, shouts, "Who are they?" And Duke, hanging from this Fang, a couple dozen yards away probably at this point, just yells, "I don't know!"
I don't know.
Even though
right?
the blades are spinning right over his head.
You got to assume they've got comms, though. Like, they're
I
not literally
suppose.
yelling to each other.
I mean, they weren't ready for combat. Why are they wearing comms?
I have seen enough rom-coms, unfortunately, to know that when you're connected, like Baroness and Duke are at the moment, he can just feel what she is thinking right
Oh
now.
my gosh, you guys. Okay, look at the panel to the left, right underneath where Duke throws the Cobra out of the Fang. Look at that panel. That's not a toe. That's Dialtone's backpack. This is going to save the day. We've got a massive communication system that some dude can wear. All right, so the Joes think they've held off Cobra, and then a Cobra branded grenade rolls into the room and seemingly kills everybody. Like, that's what it looks like to me. And then Vipers, this panel is so awesome because, one, we have not seen Vipers yet in this comic. Two, that is Mercer in a sleeveless Viper uniform leading the charge, and it is awesome.
Yeah, we got to get that figure.
Yes. 100%.
Giant Mercer with a removable Viper helmet.
Yes. He needs to be big. Like Sergeant Slaughter big.
Mm-hmm.
And they are firing the laser guns, and Rock and Roll is horrified. The only thing worse than a sad Rock and Roll is a terrified Rock and Roll. Everybody's running away. Run away, run away. And CoverGirl and Clutch are doing their best to move Dialtone's giant backpack / tow onto a cart to get it away. And Clutch says, if we break this, does that mean we have to buy it? CoverGirl is not amused. And Mercer says, if you want to gift wrap that for us, that would be just fine. And he is standing over Clutch, looking like he's about 11 feet tall. And then we move on to Redacted. 2 pages left, and we have no idea. Well, first of all, it looks like Stalker and Baroness and everybody else are dead. And then Clutch and CoverGirl.
We know Baroness isn't because grenade goes off. We don't see Stalker again, but you've got,
oh, you're right. Baroness and Rock and Roll are both outside the blast
Baroness
room.
is leaping over a table.
It would be very...
we see Stalker. I mean, we see Stalker's face down as Mercer just stomps by him.
I didn't catch that panel because I saw the boom and then I was immediately drawn to the Viper boot. I kind of skipped over the panel with Stalker's face on the ground, which granted, that doesn't mean he's alive, but he's certainly out of action. I don't think they
certainly not conscious.
No. And that is as much as we've got of G.I. Joe #1. We will discuss the final 2 pages on next week's live stream right here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. I cannot believe it has already been an hour, but you guys, you know what time it is. We can't just cut things off here because if you're following Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram, you know we had a sound off where the Audible Army tells us what they want us to talk about. And of course, what we're going to talk about is bananas. BANANAS. Wreck Ship 85 commented, it may have already been asked before, but which Joe and Cobra needs to have a mini-series next? It has absolutely been asked before, but that's okay because don't ever feel like you might be asking an old question or something we've addressed, because as time goes on, our answers to these things may change, often change. And I cannot remember what we've said in the past, but Kristian, if you could pick any Joe or Cobra, or he says Joe and Cobra, who would you pick next?
Mine does not change actually from the last time. I still think Mindbender will make a phenomenal miniseries.
I would love to see Mindbender. For Cobra, I'll just say Firefly, just because I'm a Firefly guy, and I would be very interested to see how. Well, first of all, if he's going to be a ninja in the Energon Universe, he's not going to be a ninja. I hope. I'd like to see. Well, you know what? I'm going to change that.
What if they put him in the green and gray outfit?
I'm gonna change that. I actually want to see Scrap Iron's backstory and how he got hooked up with Destro. I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, and I've said in the past when we've asked similar questions or we've just discussed this, I said I wanted Tomax and Zaymot, but I think they've done a pretty good job of introducing them, so I don't think it's necessary to do them now. I also did say Scrap Iron before, but I think either Mindbender or Firefly would really like. I would love to see a Firefly because I know that Retaliation's not a great movie, but I loved his portrayal in that movie.
He's so good in it.
I would love to see like that kind of backstory for Firefly.
Yeah.
Like he's this rogue, like mercenary saboteur that just happens to fall into the ranks.
Well, and it's in that movie, he's sort of Cobra Commander's ace in the hole. And I like he's almost like in the comics, Storm Shadow was sort of Cobra Commander's like bodyguard backup guy, like he's the guy, like, and Firefly was almost like that in Retaliation. And I'd like to see that like relationship developed. Maybe even if it's between the Cobra Commander miniseries and this, where it would be really cool if at some point in the main G.I. Joe series, Cobra Commander's in trouble, and then Firefly just shows up and is the guy that saves him, and then we get a Firefly miniseries to explain how that relationship happened.
He's been there the whole time, just waiting for that right moment. Yeah.
On the Joe side, Cutter, because I want to see the whale.
Is he going to be like teaching like high school girls swimming, and he gets like recruited at that point? Because that's his background.
I mean,
hanging out and
Clutch would probably recruit him for that specialty. Do you guys have any Joes you'd specifically like to see?
I've got a couple that I thought about. Like I'd love to see Beachhead. We already have our Ranger character with Stalker, so I don't know if it might be a little redundant to bring him in just yet. We've already seen some great comic series with him, but I think bringing Chuckles into this universe with his own comic would also work.
That's a tough call though, because the IDW Chuckles series is one of the few things they did that is appreciated by everyone.
Yep.
So it's kind of a tall order to say, well, let's bring this guy in and see if we can top that thing that everybody loves.
And that's my only, like, that's the only thing that keeps me from thinking that would be like my top choice, because it's already been done so well by IDW.
So White Vegeta, I never thought that, I never considered Outback. I think that with the direction they've been going, that could make a very interesting miniseries. Because I was sitting here thinking, Jinx, even though we got her in Scarlet, I want to know everything leading up to Scarlet finding her with the Arashikage. Yeah. I want to know what's been going on. What was Jinx's journey to get to the Arashikage? And you could almost flip that, because with
what if Jinx is Snake Eyes?
Yeah. Well, you guys really want that relationship, don't you? Between Jinx and Scarlet.
That's going to be my new thing. And White Vegeta's comment was, as far as the Joe universe is concerned, I want Zartan and Outback. I 100% agree about Zartan. That's a good call. That's going to be my new gimmick, though, is I'm going to say, ooh, what if whoever is Snake Eyes every time they introduce a new character?
What if Clutch is actually Snake Eyes?
Snake Eyes. All right, we got to move on. Griddle Gaines commented, how long before we get an Energon Universe classified line of figures, or do they just incorporate them directly into the line? I think they just incorporate them in the line because as we've already seen, the Energon Universe is basically using classified designs. Now,
Yep.
I don't think it's out of the question that we see maybe some special releases or like a Comic-Con box set where maybe they're repainted to look more like the Energon Universe art. But I think, just like we saw with the Snake Eyes movie, media stuff is just going to be part of the classified line. That's my guess. What do you guys think?
When
Yeah.
I read this, I kept thinking about the mole rat, and I was like, well, I feel like they already showed us that they're just going to incorporate it into the regular line. But then I also wonder, like, they haven't gone anywhere with it since the mole rat release, really.
Yeah.
So maybe they're pivoting, and but I still think it'd be part of the regular line.
Yeah, and I said, and as you mentioned, they were heavily influenced by the classified figures already for a lot of the character introductions we've seen here. So I think it'll be kind of a blend where we'll probably get some figures that draw from the influence of the comics. Maybe not directly Energon Universe versions of the figure, but they may draw from what we've seen for characters we don't already have figures of, or maybe for other versions of characters we already have figures of. But as we just mentioned, we got to get a 7-foot tall Mercer with a removable Viper helmet. That's just a must at this point.
And Agent Cakes. Well, and that interview, if you watch that interview between Lenny and Joshua Williamson, it's confirmed that Hasbro determined the design for Nemesis Immortal.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Henry commented, how many issues until it's revealed that the Overlord AI survived and has entered the bats, but has a secret grudge against Destro? Good idea. I don't mind that at all. I've said it before and I'll say it again. What the Energon Universe needs is more fangs.
We have at least one more now.
Yeah, we have one additional fang. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go back to that and say I do want to see Overlord at some point, but I do want them to stay away from AI for a little while just because it was so heavy in Real American Hero. And I think there are other better things they can do for a while.
I don't want AI or nanotechnology to be the driving plot of a G.I. Joe story for a long time.
I don't mind it being part of things, but yeah, I don't want it to be anything central.
I'm not going to say I'm a purist when it comes to Overlord, but I don't want any human cyborg, like, give me his original robot. Like, I like your idea, Tom. Like, if he did download himself into bats and he is supposed to be, the leader of the bats or squad commander, whatever you want to call it, and he, gives himself that new look, I just want him to be purely robotic.
What if Risk is Overlord and he gets blown up and combined with a bat that's been infected with Overlord to save his life?
I don't think he'll get blown up.
I just want Risk to get blown up. That's all I'm putting on the table here.
Flashing back to our DragonCon panel, and they slam Risk up against the thing, and like in Superman 3, it just all the robotics take over him.
But then he's Robo Joe. I want Risk to be Robo Joe. Oh, so many great ideas here on Audible Interlude. That is all the time we've got for this G.I. Joe #1 review. Any final thoughts, fellas, about G.I. Joe #1? I mean, it was a fun ride. It was a lot of recap, but we did definitely get a great setup. And I'm dying to see these last 2 pages. Mm-hmm. So I hope everybody goes to their local comic shop this Wednesday and picks up one of the 8,000 different covers that are available for this comic. But any final thoughts from you guys?
Buy it. It's absolutely, if you're a Joe fan, it is 100% worth it. I feel like we are in for a phenomenal, fun ride.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm dying to find out what's in those last two because I can't imagine they redacted it because of something that's going to let us down in 2 days when this actually hits shelves.
Right. All right. Well, our music is by Andy Sanford of electricminnowmusic.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Audible Interlude Podcast. Noel, why don't you tell us a little bit about The Finest?
The Finest is an international G.I. Joe costuming club, and we raise money for a fantastic organization called Canines for Warriors. Check out thefinestcc.com or the Finest Recruitment Center if you've ever thought about suiting up with us. And actually, I will be at the Retro Toy Con on November 22nd, 23rd, 24th. We'll have a booth up there in Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're able to get by, come by. It's also a great toy show.
Kristian, where can we find that toy photography you do so well?
You can find me on Instagram under the name Legion Cub.
Everybody that hung out with us tonight, we appreciate you. Please spread the word about Audible Interlude. Let the people know about the most fun G.I. Joe podcast in all the land. Until next time, yo, Joe.
Cobra.